Torah Life Ministries come out of the world. Messiah people seek the truth.
Hello everybody, it's Paul Neeson with Torah Life Ministries, and it is time for this week's Torah Portia, which is the first 5 books of the Bible. I'm reading about that, the instructions that we are commanded to live by, and what Yeshua the Messiah himself told us to follow when he was teaching all of the people. And we're going on a yearly Torah cycle, and we're starting in the book of Numbers. So this week's reading is Numbers 1:1 to 4:20. And I'm going to be using several different translations, but if you haven't been reading the Torah cycle, now would be a great time to start. And we'll look at the book of Numbers and see what it actually is. And one of my favorite translations of the Bible is the One New Man Bible by William Morford, which I have at a Raw Life Health Show. And in this book, it says here in the book of Numbers, the note by my friend William Morford says, the book of Numbers is the history of the wilderness from the 2nd month to the 2nd year until the last 2 months before entering the promised land. The Hebrew name Bidamar means in the wilderness. So Bidmar or Bidamar, it means in the wilderness, and that's where the children of Israel were. And we're going to look at and see, just like in all the other Torah readings and all the time, that our wonderful Creator gives specific instructions for the children, and each time they followed it, they were blessed. And when they didn't follow it, they were cursed of some sort. Now, we look at the promise or the covenant that was told to Abraham that his children would be more numerous than even the grains of sand on the ground in the desert. And we're starting to see that happen. We see all these different people. There was actually 12 tribes, and there needed some organization here in the desert. Now, we saw in the last book of Leviticus weeding out some of the disobedient people. And it was a shame that it had to happen, but there were disobedient people, and the community needs to be kept pure. So there were examples given, and there were actually actions taken to weed out the impure or the ones that were going to disrupt the community. And we see a lot of the people are still going to have issues with the book of Numbers or in the book of Numbers that were in the desert at that time. However, we start to see the organization taking form. We see the tribes lining up around the tabernacle, and we see the instructions that were given us last time about how the priests were to act and how the people were to worship. Now we actually see even more of that. Who's allowed to go into the tabernacle, what they're allowed to do, and so on. So it continues. But we read here, and it says in Numbers 1:4, it says, take with you from each tribe someone who is head of the clan. These are the men to take. So not only are the instructions given of organization of the tribes and the tabernacle, what needs to be done, but so specifically, we're told exactly who to take from each tribe. And then it goes down a list of tribes and who they are to take from the tribe. And they were all called by name. And we discussed in the past the importance of Hebrew, and the names have a significance. And all the people that were called by a name, and specifically called by a name. So when our Creator says, or when it says in the scripture, He knows every hair on our head. He knows our name. He knows our past, present, and future. He knows our heart. He knows all about us. And He called those people for a reason. And then He started to talk about the priest, how the priest was set apart, and the Levi and Levitical community, and so on. So that's what this book starts to discuss, or these chapters start to discuss. But in Numbers 1:54, it says, this is what the people of Israel did. They did everything their Creator ordered Moses to do. Finally, we see here in a previous book of Leviticus, Moses, being the messenger of our wonderful Creator, was giving the instructions to the people, and some followed, but many were disobedient and suffered. Finally, we see here, Numbers 1:54, this is what the people of Israel did. They did everything that the Creator ordered Moses to do, which is a wonderful thing. And we see again in Numbers 2:34, it says again, the people of Israel did everything that our Creator ordered Moses to do. So we see in the last book, we saw how the people disobeyed and they were punished, but now twice we see in this one reading how they did everything they were told to do. And there's a significant thing. But what I want to do here is there's some interesting notes in this book, this translation, the One New Man Bible, revealing Jewish roots and power. this great translation of the scriptures, revealing Jewish roots. Remember that, because that's what the notes bring out even more just than only the text, like many other scriptures. Now, I'm not a commentary guy. I usually don't like commentary, but on this translation, I actually love it because he's doing it with a Hebraic roots mind, and I definitely recommend this. Go to healthwatchman.com, and you can get a copy of these scriptures. They're there. But what I wanted to bring out, we look at the second chapter of Numbers, and the second chapter in Numbers 2:24, specifically it says in Numbers 2:25, it says, and the charge of the sons of Gershon in the tent of meeting of the tabernacle will be the tent, its covering, the hanging for the door of the tent of meeting. Then it goes on to talk about the actual tabernacle and what's to happen. But the note in this scripture says, and it's very important to understand this if you want to understand the whole temple and everything that was going on. It says, the word tabernacle usually, as here, refers to the whole complex, while the word tent refers to the sanctuary. So I'm going to read that again. It says, the word tabernacle usually, as here, refers to the word complex, while the word tent refers to sanctuary. And the verse they're talking about is Numbers 2:25, and that verse says, and the charge of the sons of Gershon in the tent of meeting of the tabernacle will be the tent, its covering, the hanging for the door of the tent of meeting. So then it goes on to say, the hangings of the court, the curtain for the door, the court, which surrounded the tabernacle, the altar, and its cords for all its service. And it goes on to discuss the service, the setup, and the people, all about that here in Numbers, and that's what they're talking about. And it was also, the reason why the book is called the Book of Numbers is because a census was taken. Within the organization of this, they had to take a census to count who was where, and who was what, and what part of what tribe, and so on, and that's what they did. Then we go on to look at here at the third chapter, in verse 47 of the third chapter, it says, you will even take 5 shekels apiece. By the pole after the shekel of the sanctuary will you take them. And here we see, most of us have no idea what a shekel is, but the note says a shekel is 4/10 of an ounce. It could be either silver or gold. 5 shekels of gold in the early 2000s equaled $1,500. So that gives you an idea of what they were doing here, because we saw they took 5 shekels. So 5 shekels. So 5 shekels of gold in the early 2000s equals $1,500. Now, who knows how much it equaled back then, but we do know it was probably a good amount of money here. So definitely an amazing book that's setting up something amazing to happen in the future, because he specifically didn't just have the people go in there and do whatever they wanted to. He gave them specific instructions when they went into the promised land. But before they did that, he had to weed out the impure people, or the impure thinking of the people. And he did that by destroying everyone who left Egypt that was going to come into the promised land, because they did not have the understanding or the purity in their heart for the word of our Creator in all ways. They had it in some ways, but not always. And I believe that's the importance of the message here. He consistently tries to get his message to us and teach us what he wants us to do, and gives us chance after chance after chance. And even organizing them to make sure that none of them were deceived, or they misunderstood something. So you didn't just have a rush of people going into the countries, into the promised land. You had an organized crowd go in, and within that organizational structure, they found out who the good and who the good-hearted and bad-hearted was, we'll say. All right? And if we want to be the good-hearted and do everything righteousness calls for, we have to understand what righteousness is and what our Creator wanted us to do. And the way we're going to do that is by reading our scriptures. And I assure you, reading the Torah is a great place and a great thing to do on a regular weekly basis. All right, everybody, if you have any comment or question, post them below the video. This is Paul Neeson with Torah Life Ministries and the Raw Life Health Show. Thank you. Have a great week, and shalom, shalom.
Torah Life Ministries come out of the world. Messiah people seek the truth.